At 6:07 a.m., there was a brand new chain-link fence where my road used to breathe a bright padlock, flashing like a dare, and a paper sleeve taped to the mesh saying I owed $1,200 for trespassing on what they now called community property. And in that split second, I knew this wasn't about safety or rules. This was a power move aimed right at my throat. By sundown, that same gate would be my toll booth, and the woman who taped that sleeve would be asking me for a receipt like everybody else. A few days later, a detective took her gently by the elbow and asked her to come downtown, and the neighborhood got so quiet you could hear the air conditioner hum. My name's Cole Walker, and my place sits where the foothills slide into the flats outside Sierra Verde, New Mexico. Scrub and cottonwoods, and a skinny road. We've always called Juniper Wash, the same road my daughter Riley learned to ride down the same stretch my wife loved at sunset, when the light went copper and the world got soft for a minute. You spend enough years on a road, it stops being dirt and starts being time. You know what I mean? That morning, the HOA president, a woman named Madeline Sharp, with a clipboard like a shield and sunglasses too big for the early light, walked up without saying hello and slid an envelope through like feeding time at the zoo. Mr. Walker, effective today. Juniper Wash is common property under Section 4.3. She said a sugar and ice in the same breath. Your unauthorized use constitutes a violation. This is your initial fine. You can pay online. I told her the road predated their paint swatches and mailbox font guide, that my deed had an easement recorded in the 50s, and she tapped her clipboard with a pink nail like a small gavel. Easement expired, Mr. Walker. Apply for an access permit or find an alternate route. She said, smiling, not because anything was funny. Then she turned and left, every heel strike a little verdict. I went to their meeting under fluorescent lights where Harmony lives on a laminated poster, and nowhere else brought copies of my deed. Like a man brings rain to a fire, started into the mic slow and plain. Juniper Wash appears on the Walker parcel as recorded in 1957. Instrument number. And the red light blinked, the mic went dead. Madeline raised one finger without looking at me and said, "This is new business only," and her vice president, Donna Pike, read from a list like she'd been waiting all week. Unapproved outbuilding color grass, higher than 6 inches on the shared sightline. Visible agricultural equipment from the community trail. Even wine chime noise complaints. Folks turned to stare like I'd driven a tractor into church, and I walked out trying to chew down the heat behind my ears. After that, the clipboards multiplied. Strangers stood at the fence with laser measures and disappointed head tilts. A law firm I'd never heard of sent a letter promising a permanent barrier if I didn't pay in 30 days, and then came a notice taped in blue painter's tape saying the water district would be reviewing utilities crossing Cypress Ridge controlled property, which is a pretty way to say threat. 3 lawyers wanted $5 grand just to squint at my papers. The county recorder's office put me on hold until the patience music carved a groove in my skull, and every road I tried ended in a shrug. Meanwhile, Riley was home for the summer, trying to spin up joy out of yard sales and horse breath. And one night, she found me under the bare bulb maps and copies and coffee rings laid out like a crime scene, and asked if they could really shut off our water. I wanted to tell her no in a way that made it true. "Not if I'm breathing," I said. And that's when the anger got quiet, and the quiet is where the tools are. My neighbor Gus Ellison, retired surveyor, sees a straight line on a crooked day. stopped at the fence, squinted at the posts and the asphalt, and me, and asked if I had my grandfather's deed, like it was a sandwich we could split. We unrolled the 1957 survey, and there it was hiding in plain type, 12-foot utility, and access buffer reserved to the Walker parcel along the east margin of the road, which meant that fence wasn't just arrogant, it was trespassing. Gus drove a wooden stake with an orange ribbon and said, "It'd stand here. Now look at their fence. They're 6, maybe 7 feet onto you, clear as church bells." I laughed the kind of laugh that hurts. Finding out you're right is one thing. Making it matter is something else. So Riley and I traced parcels on the county's GIS like panning a creek, and we found a weird sliver of land running exactly under their fence that didn't belong to the HOA at all. It sat with a dissolved developer shell asset sold to an out-of-state fund that probably didn't know they owned goat grass in New Mexico. Most folks would shrug. I dialed. "Hey, you own a sliver in Sierra Verde that's about to be dragged into an HOA fight." I told the acquisitions guy, who sounded half awake. "I can make that go away. I'm an adjacent owner. I'll give you $6,500 for a quitclaim today. That's more than the dirt is worth, and less than 1 hour of your lawyer." He said email the details, and by 3:03 p.m., the recorder stamped it, and that strip under the fence was mine. Yeah, that happened. I didn't brag. I loaded steel posts. After dark, Riley swung a light, while I set 2 posts in concrete just inside their gate, but on my legal side, bolted an automated barrier arm I'd picked up from an equipment liquidator, wired a keypad and a weatherproof pay box that took cards and spit receipts, then hung clean. Black and white signs in the exact font the HOA uses, because petty is a spice I do enjoy. Private road, Walker Ranch. Access fee required. Service vehicles, 10 per entry. Residents, monthly access pass available. Not because I love tolls, because bullies speak fluent cost. Morning looked like a carnival. Lawn crews paid and rolled through. An Amazon driver scanned, shrugged, paid, and went. Mrs. Granger eased up, slid a 20 through the slot. Said my husband would have told you to put this up years ago, and gave me a nod like an oath. Then Madeline arrived with weather in her eyes. "You will remove this contraption immediately. You are holding this community hostage," she said, breath tight with polished fury. I pointed at the orange ribbon, then the deed clipped to the post. "This machine sits on my side. It charges a fee for wear and tear on my property. If you don't want to pay, use the other exit." She blinked. "There is no other exit. Seems like a planning issue," I said. She called the police. Officer Ben Ortega touched the survey ribbon, flipped my papers, and said, "Ma'am, this is a civil property line dispute. I'm not cutting anything today," then left like a good man who knows what not to do. The HOA sent a cease and desist full of words like extortion and lien and forced sale. They scheduled an emergency board meeting to resolve the crisis caused by Metro Walker, and the neighborhood Facebook spun into a little war. Under a fake profile, I was violent and dangerous. Under Donna's real name, I had obtained the deed illegally under my own breath. I kept saying, "Hold your line." Friends crossed grocery aisles like I was contagious. Riley asked if it was worth it. "I don't know," I told her. "But if we fold now, they keep the boot and find new necks." 72 hours later, I walked into their community center with Tom's survey, overlay the quitclaim deed, and a calm I had to earn. Madeline delivered a speech about my illegal toll road and announced a $500 special assessment on every homeowner to fund litigation, and you could feel the room tilt as folks did the math. They called my name like a sentence. I set the survey on the projector and traced the fence with a red dot. I'm not here to argue bylaws. I'm here to correct ownership. I said, this 12-foot buffer belongs to the Walker parcel. Your fence sits 6 to 7 feet onto my land. Then I clicked to the deed with its bright blue county stamp. As of 3:03 p.m., 2 days ago, the strip under your fence and the edge of your entrance road is mine. You can't sue me for restricting access across land you don't own. If you pass this assessment, you're paying lawyers to lose. Silence with edges. Then the murmur cracked. Riley's live stream ticked past 500. Folks uncorked years of small humiliations. A dad fined $50 for a scooter on the lawn. A gardener forced to dig up her roses because they weren't on the approved list. And Gus cleared his throat and said he'd read the HOA's reports, and 38% of last year's revenue came from fines. That's not stewardship, he said. That's a business model. The door opened. Officer Ortega walked in with Detective Lila Moreno, who looked tired in a way that felt honest. She spoke low, but the room carried it. Ms. Sharp, we've received documentation from former board members regarding potential misuse of association funds and possible false filings with the county. We'd like you to come downtown and answer a few questions. Madeline said this was harassment, that this was a private meeting. Detective Moreno nodded once. You're not under arrest. We're asking you to come answer questions. People stepped back without being told. There was a clean path to the door. My gate remote sat on the table between us like an idea with 2 buttons. I didn't touch it. I just said quiet enough to travel far. The road stays open when it's owned fair. She looked past me like a person hunting for a different story, then walked out with the detective and the door closed soft. No fireworks, no parade. Just a room full of neighbors standing inside the quiet after a long noise. Here's where the argument starts. Was I right to put up the gate, or did I just build a prettier fence? Is a toll justice or a mirror that makes everyone look harder? I know the truth that sat behind my ribs, helpless turned into something that could move steel. And I know if you've ever had a small authority with a big rule tell you your history doesn't count. You felt that turn too. So tell me what you think. Was I right, or did I go too far? Have you seen petty rules become weapons where you live? Drop your city, your story, your take in the comments. And if you don't think small tyrants should get to redraw